who should be speaking on that slide. But what we're here is to learn about studying computer games technology and related courses at Abertay University. And the three of us, Ruth, Emma, and myself, I'll take you through it and answer any questions you may have at the end. And feel free to type up questions as well. We may not be reading them during this presentation, but if you don't want to ask a question, get on the camera and microphone, please type the question in the chat and we will look at them in turn at the end. So thank you everyone who's came today. How many people do we have actually? Did we have a number of count?
I think we have a mix, Matt, because we've got some who are watching on YouTube live as well. So welcome to all of you who are watching via YouTube as well.
Of course, yeah. So thank you for all attending. I said questions at the end. We'll type them if necessary. This is my habit of explaining the next slide before I actually do it. We'll cover our university in the broad sense. We will talk about specifically our school and our programs, and in greater detail, MSc CGT. On to Ruth.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Professor Ruth Faulkner, and I head up the Division of Games Technology and Maths in the School of Design and Informatics at Abertay. I've got a couple of different roles within the organisation and externally. Also an active researcher in the broader use of games technology. So I'm a co-investigator on one of the AHRC Creative Industries projects, which is around looking at how we can de-risk emerging technologies and develop workflows and processes that we can help SMEs and other games companies use AI, machine learning, other technologies within their work streams. I'm also passionate about diversity in the games sector and industry. So I'm a Education Director for Women in Games, which is a not-for-profit organisation, and we run an annual conference on games, which is very successful. Last year we had that a virtual conference because of COVID, and we had over 1,000 participants, and it was a real success. So my kind of research background is the use of applied games technology, so specifically engines for entertainment uses, the use of immersive tech and GPUs for simulation. And underpinning that is what I teach within the divisions, which is kind of traditional computer science, so data structures and algorithm, parallel programming, all these things that help us build faster and performant games. So nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Ruth. For myself, I'm a lecturer in games engineering, and I've been at the university for 15 years, and I've taught really every technical subject across the games courses that there's been. Research-wise, I'm doing some work in virtual reality to do with improving depth perception, increasing our interaction and our immersion, augmented reality, looking at pipelines and content creation methods. But really, at the moment, I'm very interested in virtual production, and we have a few projects in this area, which I'll talk about on a later slide, but that is to do with the pipelines, technology, and techniques. And we have some current work and some previous projects in that. And my skill set is really programmer, but also I've done some art and some design work as well. And my interest is always how we can use games technologies and games techniques to do things that aren't necessarily specifically games, so the other industries that can benefit from that.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. So my name's Emma. I am not within the School of Design and Informatics, where Ruth and Matt come from, but I work within the sort of central admissions and external relations office at Abertay. So I'm a senior international officer. I'm the regional lead for Europe and Central, South and Southeast Asia. So any students who are coming to us from those regions, including those of you who are maybe already studying in the UK, but come from elsewhere in the world, I'm your kind of main person to help support you through the admissions process, give you more information about fees, scholarships, visas, and that kind of thing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end of the session, after Ruth and Matt have spoken more about the School of Design and Informatics and the course. I'm also the main Abertay contact with SIUK. So if you are working with SI UK to support your application, then you can also come and chat with me. And before we get started, we just wanted to do a bit of some brief introductions to you as well. So I believe our colleagues at SI UK have a few poll questions to put out to you. The first one being, I think it's where are you from? That might be whether you feel that you're from the UK because you're in the UK now. You might be from elsewhere and have come to the UK. But if you can answer the questions, it would be great to sort of see where our audience are coming from. And then we've got a couple more questions afterwards. I think there's half the people I can see who's been voting. We've nearly got from everyone, so majority from Asia, but we've also got from Africa and from the UK as well. I'll end that one there. Oh. Yep, so most from Asia. And then the second question, I think SI UK can put up. Just waiting to see. Yeah, and what level of study are you currently at, or is the most recent thing that you've completed? So are you currently a school student, currently undergraduate, or finished your undergraduate? So we can just sort of gauge what kind of level you might be looking at head to in the future. As Matt and Ruth have said, like this session is mainly to talk about our master's degree program in computer games technology, but we do offer, you know, a range of study levels in this subject area, both undergraduate and postgraduate tour and research as well. So great to see we've got quick answers from everyone there. So majority of you are undergraduate, which is perfect. That's exactly what we were looking at. And apologies to you guys who are watching on YouTube, you won't be able to see, well, vote in the polls anyway, but hopefully you can see. And then we've got one final question. So what's your subject area of interest? Hopefully, well, we're hoping that you're all interested in computer games, but you know, within the School of Design and Informatics, we offer programs around computing, cybersecurity, ethical hacking, all kinds of things. And maybe today will be a bit of inspiration for you as to the subject area that you're interested in. Got one more vote to come in.
Just want to say these are anonymous votes, so yeah, don't be shy.
Oh yeah, we can't. Yeah, I can't see who's voting what. I can just see that 5 out of 6 people have voted, so that's fine. But yeah, good to see that the majority of you are looking around computer games, computer science, and that kind of area, which is very much the specialist area that Abertay is very well known for. So that's all of our polls for today. I will hand back over to Ruth and Matt, who are going to give you more of an introduction to Abertay and all everything that we have to offer within games.
Do you want to do this one, Ruth, or will I?
I'm happy to do this one. But if that poll disappears, I can still see that.
You can just shut it yourself.
I've done it. Okay. Okay, so I thought we'd start off with maybe a little bit of information about Dundee and the heritage and how Abertay is well known for games. So Dundee is one of the games hubs of the UK, alongside other cities like London, Edinburgh, for example. So Dundee has quite a rich heritage in games. It spans back at least 3 decades. We've got a booming video games cluster in Dundee, and that links to some of the research that we're doing. So we're well linked with local industry and beyond. In terms of the city, we're a UNESCO City of Design, so we're the only one in the UK. And recently we had the V&A, so the Victoria and Albert Museum, there's one also in London, open up in Dundee, which has a focus on design. So games, have a strong design focus as well as a technology focus. So this V&A and the creative industry sector in Dundee is really booming. And we've got a couple of images that have been actually generated by students in different projects. So there's the Minecraft replication of the campus there done by prof students. There's a more realistic virtual environment which represents how Dundee looks if you're arriving to Dundee on the train, which was done by a PhD student, and we've got a photograph up there of the V&A. So we're the best modern university in Scotland. We're quite a small university, we're compact, we're friendly, We recently were the Uni of the Year in terms of teaching quality. So because we've got small classes, we really build up a rapport with our students and help develop them in the best way going forward. So next slide then, Matt. So some of the other things that we're really well known for, and some have been mentioned already. So in terms of best games university in Europe, annually the Princeton Review, which is run out of America, launched this, and for the 7th year running, Abertay is #1 in Europe in terms of game design and development, and that's alongside some of the really big design and development schools in America. We're top modern, as I said. We were the first university to offer degrees in computer games technology and ethical hacking. So I hope that gives some kind of confidence in our creativity and our innovation to spot new courses that are relevant for industry and that are going to help our graduates secure jobs. We were also the first in the UK to have a Centre for Excellence for Computer Games Education. So I'll talk a little bit about the computer games education timeline, which I think is on the next slide. So we've been studying or creating graduates with this computer games background since 1997. So our first games course was the MSc Computer Games Technology, and this really stemmed from a need of local industry, because we've had games companies working in Abertay in Dundee for like 3 decades, recognizing that they couldn't really get graduates that had enough maths and technical skills to develop console games and PC games. So this was a course that was designed very closely with industry at the master's level. And this is the course that we're going to talk a little bit more about today in terms of the module and the content. But because it was so popular, we then offered different types of games courses at the undergraduate and postgraduate level that span that game subject area. So we know that, a game is a mixture of maths, technology, design, art, and production. So we spawned different courses that really develop the expertise in these different areas. So you can see the timeline. We've got BSc courses through to BA, through to MSc and MProf courses. And so we'll specifically talk about the one that we developed in 1997, which is the Computer Games Technology course. So on to the next slide, Matt. So the structure of the school, we have 3 divisions. So we're really a school that is known for games and cybersecurity. From the games subject area, because we cover the art, the design, the technology and maths, we have 2 divisions which cover the art and design. So that's the Games and Arts division that's run by my colleague Dana Galloway, and myself that run the BSc aspects of the games courses, so the maths, the technology and the programming. So the postgraduate courses we've kind of highlighted in bold there. So we've got the MProf in computer games development, we've got the MSc in computer games technology, and we have a new course which is the MSc AI and user experience. So we'll focus on those. We also have the division of cybersecurity that's led by my colleague Natalie Cool, and they run courses in ethical hacking and cybersecurity. We have about 64 full-time members of staff in the school. What's very interesting and I think unique about our staff base is it's a mixture of academics and those that have worked in industry. So we've got some really talented colleagues that have spent a long time in industry. They're coming, they're delivering the teaching and imparting that knowledge that they've picked up in industry to our graduates. Recently, we've had a quite big investment in our infrastructure because these programs are popular, because on the games technology courses, for example, there's really good employability. So because they're popular, we've got reasonable income, we can invest in our teaching spaces. So we have dedicated teaching labs, and last year we had a £5 million refurbishment of our white space concept, which is really breaks barriers and allows all these different games disciplines to come together to create games. So we've got all of the latest kit in terms of PCs with the latest graphics cards, so standard the game dev machines have RTX 2070s, and we've got some research machines that have got the RTX 3090s. We've got all of the latest immersive tech kits, so augmented virtual mixed reality headsets. We also run some projects with companies so that we can trial out these types of new and emerging technologies. And we also do some console game programming, which I guess is quite unique and sets us apart from a lot of the other games schools. And we've got the latest software and game engine. Next slide then, Matt, please. So I think our ethos at Abertay really is to, they're applied courses. They're courses where you will work in groups, in not just one specific subject area or discipline. There's opportunities, many opportunities actually to do that. We very much encourage this kind of work-based simulation, especially in the later years, so that you're working across the disciplines. We have lots of industry speakers and opportunities to engage with industry at different junctures throughout the courses, whether they're undergraduate or postgraduate, and that really helps position our graduates to get jobs in the industry that they want to. And I think the last bullet point is worth emphasising, that we are a supportive school. We will get the best out of our students. Next slide, please, Matt. So these are some of the accolades and accreditations that we've got, and these, are recognition of the teaching excellence in the school and the currency of the subjects that we're teaching. So I don't know if you'll recognise some of these. Some of them are standard, like the BCS and the James for audio. The ones that are particularly important are the TIGA and the creative skill set accreditations. So in order to achieve accreditations from these bodies, we have an industry panel that visits the university, inspects our teaching, the quality of our curricula, etc., to make sure that we're teaching what is current in the industry. Recently, we're also proud to announce that we're an Unreal academic partner, and Matt might say a little bit more about that when he comes on to his slides. Next slide then, please, Matt. And these logos just give you an idea of the range of companies that we work with on our courses. So these could be through student projects, individual projects, research projects, and some extracurricular stuff like game jams. So you'll see there's a range of game studios from indie through to AAA of various sizes. So I think the games world is so diverse in types of the games now that we're able to create. It's great to see that reflected in the partners and industry that we work with. Next slide, Matt. That's over to you, Matt.
Yeah, so specifically about the MSc Computer Games Technology course, this is a conversion course into the world of video games when you've already come from a technology or a computer science related course in your postgraduate. And the purpose of this course is to teach the fundamental techniques of games development. So this is based on our knowledge of doing this for a very long time to establish what these fundamental components are, the required mathematics, the knowledge of computer graphics and games techniques and other game development aspects. And it's based on this, but also tailored to make sure the needs of the industry are suited as well. So the aim of this course is to do this and also provide someone that can go straight into an entry-level employment position with a games company. But apart from the knowledge that you're given, you're also given essential experience. And Ruth mentioned this earlier, that we have sort of group work across disciplines and whatnot. And this is one of the things that really separates Abertay University from other institutions, is that our graduates will always come out with a certificate and experience working with others in a way that they're prepared to work in the real world with co-workers, with people in different disciplines, understanding and appreciating all these things. There'll also be the opportunity in the master's course to explore your own research interests with a specialized research project that is the sort of the ending part of the MSc process. And that's your opportunity to pursue what you're interested in, and create something that it can be the centerpiece of your CV that's going to help get you a job, something you may become specialized in your career later on. So the program structure, we have a 3-semester system. First semester, you're going to look at network games development, which is covering a broad range of things, all aspects of the network gaming process, from dealing with the fundamentals such as sockets and packets and getting a network up and running, to more advanced concepts about managing more complex multiplayer game scenarios. Programming for games is the module I teach. This is where you'll be getting your fundamental knowledge of computer graphics. So we are coming to this course assuming you know none of these things, but you know how to program. So here we will give you instruction on how computer graphics works, from the very basics up until a level where you could use what you've done to create a virtual environment or a game of some sort. Artificial intelligence, similar as well, going to be taking some mathematical aspects, some technological aspects, and using those to learn about artificial intelligence, from the base concepts to more complete examples of things that can be used in games, and some things that can form the basis of further research. And often we have students taking artificial intelligence as an interest area for their MSc projects. Semester 2, we have DES 502, which is game design and development, which actually, Ruth, do you know anything about that one?
Yeah, I do. So it's this is a really interesting module, and we've got some examples of some of the student work. So this is where the master students would actually work with some of the undergraduates, so our computer artists and our design students, and you would create a prototype. So you would develop a game in a way, and the role of the MSc student is to do the programming. So it gives you this experience of working across the different subject areas, and it gives you an opportunity to develop your portfolio. So all of these modules, you have the opportunity to create a game and showcase different elements of it, whether it's the 3D graphics or the AI. And for the DES 502, what you tend to see is that the prototypes and the games that are produced are much richer, because you're working with maybe 3 or 4 undergrads on this. So the artist will be creating, really nice assets for you to use in your game. So we know that it's very difficult now for a programmer to create a game with extended gameplay, but through working with the undergrads, it gives you the opportunity to do that. So it's a very popular module. They all get really good feedback, but this one particularly, the students get the benefit of working across the spaces.
Thank you, Ruth. CMP 505 is, again, it's me teaching that, and this is the extension to 502, where we'll be exploring more advanced graphics techniques, but particularly here the focus is on procedural techniques, where we're generating game worlds, we're generating landscapes or planets or trees or dungeons, or all the different aspects that there are of modern procedural game design. We will explore and learn about everything from the basic to the cutting edge in here. And this is a very popular trait to have in games nowadays. So it's an essential piece of your toolkit that you want to have when you come out as a graduate. GRS 501 research methods. Ruth, what's that again?
I could say a bit about that. So the GRS 501 equips you with the skills, the research skills that you'll need to undertake your project work, which is what you'll be doing in semester 3. So it really allows you to set up what a research question would be, what a hypothesis would be, some basic statistics. If you're doing benchmarking or evaluating a procedural content technique, how do you know it's actually better? So it gives you some of the standard statistical methods that would allow you to test your hypothesis. Because you're doing a master's in science, an MSc, this research methods is very important, that you have that baseline understanding of the scientific method applied to games technology.
And it's worth mentioning as well, procedural method is a popular topic for the master's thesis in the same way artificial intelligence is. So semester 3, that's where you're going to be tackling the thesis. And building on what you've learned in research methods. You're going to be putting that together, conducting the practical part of your experiment, building something, testing it, have others test it, proving or disproving your hypothesis, and ultimately creating your write-up in the form of the thesis, which is sort of the written body of work demonstrating everything you've pulled together over the whole MSc.
So it's worth saying that that's an independent project. So it really,
yes,
I guess all the modules that you've done before that allow you to get a flavour for the type of game area that you like, whether it's AI or programming for games, and then you can delve into that topic much deeper in your master's project.
Next one. Huh. Yeah, okay. I'm just explaining things I've already explained when we talked about that. CMP 502 and 505, graphics and maths. I don't need to dwell too much on this. I already talked about it. Yeah, thesis again. We've just made all these extra slides redundant.
But nice examples of projects that we have currently. So the MSc program tends to be very international. So we've got a range of international students on it, and these are the types of topics that are typical, but these are the ones that we're actually running with this year, and they're really, as you'll see from the titles, they build on some of the module content, and you could be as creative as you like, within your thesis project as well. So some of the nice ones that we've been looking at in the past are novel ways, custom controllers to interact and interface with your games, AI for adaptive and effective computing in games. So how can you use facial expressions to change and affect the gameplay, down to how can you use the latest hardware in terms of GPU to exploit the ray tracing capabilities of the hardware. So there's quite a range. They can be very technical. They can focus also on that kind of UX aspect of games too. And there's always educational games, isn't there, Matt? At least one every year.
Indeed, yeah. There's a broad scope of application and particular technical challenges that students can choose. And we always have a very rich variety of all these projects that are surprising us year on year with something different. But the majority of them are built on specifically the subjects that they're exposed to as part of the MSc. Next slide. Yeah, so as I alluded to before, your kind of destinations from a graduate, if you're coming out of your degree from Abertay of a good standard, we have found that students do not find a problem getting employment in the industry where they look for it. Our employees have found positions in game development, specifically in graphics development and research. We have several students that work for NVIDIA. And we have a growing amount of students that are finding their skills are actually useful in the film and special effects industry. And this is a growing area, as we'll see. I'll talk about virtual production a little later on. We have a student, one of our graduates works for Facebook, and he previously worked for Oculus. And we have another student of ours who actually went to work for Pixar as part of their real-time graphics and pre-visualization kind of setup department. And his skills were a perfect match for what they were looking for. So perhaps a broader application of where you can go than you might think. Games might seem like a niche thing, but the skills we give you are very transferable to a lot of other industries. We actually had someone, sorry, I was going to say, Ruth.
Just to build on that, I think there's some alumni that are working now with DeepMind that actually graduated with games degrees, and so I think there's that much broader landscape of any kind of really strong and in detailed software engineering that requires a lot of maths. The CGT course sets you up for those other adjacent industries as well as games.
Typically a graduate from either the MSc or the undergraduate degree, you're going to be looking for an entry level or associate position as an engineer or programmer within some sort of embedded team in the games industry. This is the way it just works. It'd be very unusual for someone to not do that, to go into something that wasn't entry level. But because everyone's up to speed, having gone through our program, you tend to hit the ground running when you get into the development team. And from that basis, with a few years experience, you can then sort of ascend into a specialized role that isn't quite the general purpose. If you're interested in AI, you go into a general role and then you work towards that. And what happens is that the games companies have a development path suited for whatever particular interest you have generally. But again, we've had no issues with our students being able to find their position in what their chosen pursuit was, and ultimately their chosen specialization. And as Ruth said, we've got people all over the world, pretty much every games company that I can certainly think of in America and Europe, and that you'd care to mention. And we've had students in America, Europe, and Japan, everywhere you care to think about. So a good track record, shall we say, for getting people into the games industry. Here's a couple of examples for you. Now, this is examples from the undergraduate module CMP 302, where the students are working with Unreal Engine. And this is to show what's typical of all our courses and all our courseworks, is that we were not prescriptive in what you have to do exactly for your coursework. We want to give you the fundamental concepts and the core ideas, but you should be able to apply them to what you're interested in. So what we end up with is a very open brief for coursework and students doing lots of different creative things. So if I can start this video, we can see someone that's turned the basic sort of blank world of Unreal Engine into a Tony Hawk style skating game, which is actually quite tricky. And I was very surprised to see this year. The students did some fantastic work, and this is the coursework submission. For this work, they actually submit a video demonstrating their idea and what the game can do. So they have this system of I'm trying to find a more interesting part of the video, where they can navigate the world and interact with the objects through the skateboarding gameplay. So it works very well. So that was kind of a surprising one. And we have another student's work here where they made an Old West style gunslinger game with a very, very, very polished gameplay interactions, integrating animations with the gameplay and special game mechanic, that sort of thing. So this is an example of what can be done even by a programmer, because they're taking assets that are just available on the marketplace and combining them in a way with really solid gameplay to produce something that looks and feels spectacular, lots of cool effects. So yeah, some interesting stuff. I'm going to play the whole videos, but this is your one, Ruth.
Yeah, so these were just some examples of some work from the CGT cohort, actually. So the first one that's playing on the left just now was part of the AI module. So this is a submission by one person. So they were looking at different AI approaches to create a game, and this was really focused around the Boyd's algorithm. So how you can have collective swarming behavior. So you've got these little micro dots floating around, and you've got the enemy that's trying to catch them. This had audio inbuilt in it as well. So the focus of this coursework was really to evaluate two AI techniques, and this was one of them. So this was designed and built by one student using Unity, and it was quite a nice aesthetic. And actually we can't hear the music, but the audio does help with the ambience and the game feel. So that was for the AI module. And then to give you an idea for the types of things that you would be doing in DES 502, which was the one working with the undergraduate students on a group project, this is one of the concepts that they came up with. So this is a much more narrative-based game. You'll just probably have to zoom it along quite a bit. It's a demo video, but you can, when you play, you get a sense that there's a nice aesthetic, and the controls were quite nice in this as well. They worked with the designers who came up with the concept, and then the MSc student did the programming and the gluing of everything, and I think this one was in Unreal this time. So you can get a sense of the different scales of the projects, individual ones versus project there. Okay, So I think, you know, what's really useful too is a bit of background in terms of the research that we do in the School of Design Informatics. So it's not linked to a division, but broader. So we've had some recent investments. So the in-game I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a co-I on that, is a £10 million project. That's remit is to increase the scope and scale of Dundee's games cluster. And as a master's student, you would have plenty of opportunities to engage with this research project through innovation labs, through prototyping, through de-risking some of the technologies that the local games companies are interested in. And Abertay's kind of remit within this project is to look at emerging technologies. There's also St Andrews University and Dundee University, which are quite local to or close to Abertay, that look at different aspects of business and innovation models. But our focus is really on the technology. And alongside that, we have another investment that I mentioned, which is the Emergent Tech Centre, which allows, it's for postgraduate students taught and research, that allows students then to use the kit that we've got. So some of the access to some of the expensive pieces of equipment like the HoloLens 2. So we've currently got a master's student working on campus at the moment using a HoloLens 2 to look at phobia aversions, for example, using augmented reality. And within the ETC, we're also, by the end of this summer, we'll have a 5G test bed in place, which means we can really explore some of those bleeding edge technologies to see how 5G will shape the game experiences and technologies that we create in the future. And within the Dundee kind of location, there will be a public 5G space at the waterfront area where you could actually test out and evaluate some of these things that you could develop. So hopefully this gives you an idea of the level of investment and that we're working with all of the latest kit and technology.
Yeah, and this brings me on to the stuff I'm specifically involved in, which is virtual production as an extension to what we're researching, and got some projects that we're pursuing. And so something Abertay has been involved since 2010, and ever since the film Avatar came out, shortly after that, we completed one of the first ever virtual production tools outside of that particular scenario, and with an industry partner, which was 20th Century Fox. So that was a 2 or 3 year involvement end to end we had with them, working on virtual production, working with their pipeline, and being involved in some actual film process. Over the last 2 years, virtual production has seen a big uptake in the industry, some of it due to a convergence of technology between real-time rendering being very believable, between LED panels becoming cheaper and brighter, and also from tracking technology for motion tracking becoming more cost effective as well. And if you're watching have seen the Disney show The Mandalorian, it was the first showcase media that really brought virtual production to the public's attention, to the industry's attention, with about 50% of that being done in a virtual production scenario with an LED background, which is rendered by a game engine. So the original project we had, which was called Cinemotus, where we made a tool for Hollywood with some game controllers. We have a project just now with a collaboration with another university, which is exploration of the implications of teaching virtual production at an undergraduate level, and how we attenuate this technology down, and in the same way we do with games, to teach the fundamentals that people can then take out of that course and apply into whatever virtual production scenario they're exposed to. Create Converge as well as a project we've had running about using digital technology in different ways to illustrate concepts, to develop new pipelines, and connect between different partners beyond the scope of simple games development. So these are things that kind of segue into the Emergent Technology Centre, as well as explore beyond it.
Yep. And so just an idea of some of the other projects other than the virtual production that also sit alongside and spin out of the ETC and in-game. So I guess it's around the use of this broader games technology ecosystem. So the use of immersive text, whether it's the AR, HoloLens or VR, through to game engines and GPUs for research other than the creation of video games. So to give an idea of the flavour and variety of projects that we're working on, we've got a couple of funded projects where we're working with UKRI, which is one of the big, large funding bodies of the UK. And we're working with a vet, partners and farmers to look at how we can use immersive technology such as the HoloLens on site on a farm to help vets when they come on site to inspect animals, to make sure that they can identify an animal just by looking at it with this headset on. So we're looking for this project, we're looking at dairy cows specifically, but also you can then draw down the relevant data and history of that animal and get a heads-up display of that you can then interrogate and navigate, so that it really informs the vet's decision-making when they're on site. Another area that we've got is the use of games technology and AI for social and healthcare. So we're working with Macmillan, who is a third sector charity, and they have a lot of data around different services that open up to people that are diagnosed with cancer. So we can use AI and games technology to draw out some insights from that data to make recommendations on the service provision, and use a very intuitive, interactive visualization to allow staff to explore that, to make that information as obvious to them as possible. We've worked with other universities and other organisations for the application of game technology in the environment, and that tends to be maybe through the creation of serious games that maybe are around resource management of water, energy, food, so very much like Sims, and their purpose then is to raise awareness of the complexity of that space and the multiple objectives that you need to consider when you're imposing some kind of management regime on that system. So these are give you an idea of some of the broader funded projects that we have available as well and running in the school that master's students can also get involved in. We've got loads of extracurricular activities. I think this is, one of the real highlights of Abertay. There's lots of different ways you as a student, in addition to engaging with your curriculum, can build your portfolio. So through the game jam, so annually we participate and host the global game jam, but there's also one other game jam per semester based on the number of research projects that colleagues have in SDI that you could take part in. So some of the game jams that I can think of off the top of my head recently that we've had is one around networking and trying to avoid social exclusion. So that was run through a charity at Abertay. We've had one on water, energy, food nexus. We've had one with air traffic control. So how can we use games to help in design 3D airspace for training tools or for onboarding tools. So quite a variety of different game jams. We've also got other initiatives such as Transfuser, and I've known at last session a few of the master's students did group together and developed a game as part of Transfuser, and it was funded, so it gives you a little bit of funding to develop your prototype and pitch it to a wider audience to seek other funding. And there's also the Undergraduate Dare Academy, which sometimes draws in some master's students too. So we've got a real variety of different extracurricular events that you can be involved in that have real impact and reach.
I'll just start this video. This is our digital graduate show sneak peek. Maybe I can work out how to share the audio. I don't think I can. It's just an example of the various student projects and pieces of work from across all our degrees that showcase the animation students' work, game students' work, but I know you can't hear the music. There's some really inspirational, positive music in the background here to make it all tie it all together and make it look awesome. But you just have to take my word for it.
The visuals are good though still.
They are, yeah, very cool. It's just a short trailer, so I'll let it play. Yep. So the Digital Graduate Show is coming up soon on the 25th of June. That's right, yeah. Press button.
Yeah, so over to me for the slightly less exciting information than what Ruth and Matt have just been talking about. So thank you both for that introduction. And as both said, it's definitely worth, if you are around next Friday, coming along to the Digital Graduate Show, which will be taking place online. I think, am I right in thinking there's something on at 8 o'clock in the evening or 7 o'clock, something like that, but it's on our website anyway, so do check that out, especially because it gives you a good chance to see what our students are doing, and also, a whole variety, as Ruth and Matt have said, across the arts, across design, across programming as well. There's such a wide range, and I think even without the sound on that video, the quality of the projects just looks amazing this year. So I'm here to talk to you in my role as international officer a bit about the admissions process and information that you might need on that. And if you need anything else in the future, then you can come and contact me individually. So for the MSc Computer Games Technology programme and all of our taught masters programmes, the application is through the online form via our website. So to get started on that, you just have to click the Apply Now button on the course page on the Abertay website, and it will take you through to submit your name and email address so that you create your account to do your application, and then that way you can save and track your application as well. Within the application, you'll then be asked to confirm some further personal details, your current contact details, your English language proficiency, and any valid qualification that you might need for that, your education history and professional experience. So, if you've already done your undergraduate bachelor honours degree, but also if you've got any work experience that is relevant, it's well worth including that. And then the required personal statement as part of the application should really demonstrate your interest in the area of study. You can also include any relevant research experience, for example, as part of a previous degree, and give any details of other academic work that you've done or may have had published or are awaiting publication of. It's really a good way for you to show everything that you've done academically. And the personal statement should be a maximum of 1,000 words. So it's not too long, but plenty of space for you to demonstrate why you're a good fit for the programme at Abertay. In addition to the personal statement, you'll need to provide details of a referee, and you can upload a written reference if you've already asked someone to write one for you. Ideally, this should be from someone who knows you academically, or a professional reference would also be accepted if it's kind of relevant to your application. And then just briefly, the entry requirements for all of our master's programmes, generally we look for a good honours degree at bachelor's level, so equivalent to a UK full bachelor's degree. For computer games technology, this should be in computing or a related discipline. As Matt said, the teaching really builds on what you already know, your programming abilities. So we do look for a good knowledge of object-oriented programming and mathematics. Ruth and Matt can perhaps allude to that more if anyone's got specific questions around that. And then for English language, if you are an international applicant, we accept a range of qualifications, which are all detailed on our website. And for example, for IELTS, we look for an overall score of 6.0 with no band lower than 5.5. But if you have already studied a bachelor's degree in the UK, then that's sufficient evidence of your English language. So we wouldn't need a further qualification on that. Could I have the next slide, please? Thanks. And then just a brief rundown of some of the other information, and then we'll be happy to take questions. So please do get typing away if you've got any. The tuition fees for the MSc programme are £17,000. It is a one-year course, and that covers the full year. We do also offer an international postgraduate scholarship of £3,000, and this is awarded as a deduction from the tuition fees. I thought I'd also just briefly mention student visas, especially if you are already studying in the UK, then you may already be here on a student visa. So you are able to apply from inside the UK. There have been some kind of special rules put out over this summer in terms of how that can happen and the gaps between visas. So if your current visa is due to expire, there is some leeway because of the current situation in the world if you don't want to have to leave the UK and then come back again. But do have a look on the UK government website and make sure you're keeping on top of things and adhering to any deadlines and time limits and things like that. Your visa, if you do decide to apply for this year or for next year, you'll have to wait until you get your confirmation of acceptance for studies from us before you can apply for it. So if you are looking for this year and you've not yet started an application, then I would encourage you to do so as soon as possible. And obviously if it's for next year, then you've got plenty of time, and I would look at waiting until around January, February, March time next year before you need to be working on an application. We have a whole range of accommodation options, and if you're an international student, whether that's at undergraduate or postgraduate level, and you apply for accommodation by the relevant deadlines, then you're guaranteed a place within our accommodation. We've got a range of budgets to suit, a range of options to suit different budgets, and they're all within walking distance of the university. As Ruth mentioned earlier, Dundee is a relatively small city. Pretty much everything is in walking distance. There are buses as well if you want to get around a bit further outside of the city, but it is very easy to walk everywhere and get around. And as well as the digital graduate show, I thought I'd just mention that we have an online postgraduate open evening coming up. So that's the week after the digital graduate show on Wednesday, the 30th of June. And if you want to learn a bit more about Abertay Live, you can be messaging and speaking with students as well. We'll be putting on some Q&A sessions. So if you feel like you've probably had lots of information today about the computer games technology program, but if you want other information about coming to Abertay, then that's a great place to find out. So that's kind of a brief overview of admissions. But if anyone has any questions about applying, about scholarships and things like that, or if you want to ask more about the course or research or some things our students have done from Ruth or Matt, then please do go for questions now. I'm just having a look. I've seen a couple one that Rabia has put in. So the question there is I have not studied computing before. I'm from an engineering background. Is there any conversion course for me to study computer games, and what are the requirements? I guess that question really depends on the type of engineering that someone might be undertaking, but Ruth or Matt, I don't know whether one of you wants to talk a bit more on that. Say if it was something like computer engineering or...
Yeah, I mean, if it was, I think you go, Matt, sorry.
No, you're right. The main thing here is the programming experience, because it's not, the assumption is that you can program and that you have a good knowledge in a C-related, C++ preferred programming language, and can understand and work with object-oriented code. If you've done any kind of engineering, that your maths is probably fine and able to go on to the next phase. But it's programming that is the thing that, if you can't program, that's a slight barrier to your efficiency.
Because we do assume programming, so anything like C# or Java as well would be okay. But yeah, having some exposure to that, because what we will, well, Matt specifically will be teaching you is DirectX and C++, and if you've not done any programming before, it would be too much of a challenge. So if you've done some scripting potentially in your engineering and done some Java, for example, that could be an option. But it's difficult to answer that question specifically without knowing, as you said, Emma, the type of engineering and if it did include some programming.
Yeah, if you can include more information. I think Faiza has also put in a question in the chat box. She says, the tuitions for all semesters, and how to pay?
Yeah, so the tuition fees, the £17,000 is for the full programme, so for all 3 semesters. And the way that you would need to pay is we ask for a 50% deposit from international students before you start. That's in order to issue your CAS for your visa. So that would be £8,500. And then before you start or when you enroll in September, that's when the remainder is due, and that would be less the scholarship. So with the £3,000 scholarship, the remainder due would be £5,500. So it's basically in 2 instalments. Yes, I can write it down for you guys so you've got it. Does anybody else have any questions they would like to ask? I realise we're kind of coming to the end of time anyway.
Just
for this
last
session.
5 minutes, you guys, if you have any questions, anyone on YouTube or anyone in this call, do put them down. I will also put our SIUK info email, just in case you want to use that to ask any further questions, or you can also contact Emma. I guess Emma will also put her email towards the end, so you can write to us directly.
And I think, I was going to say, I don't know if Matt can quickly share, but on the first slide, we had our email addresses up. I don't know whether it's worth just popping that first slide up again, and then people can take that down. So yeah, feel free to contact me if it's anything about applying, admissions, entry requirements, that kind of thing, if you pass it over to me. And then if you have any other questions, I can always pass them on to the relevant member of staff who might be able to answer that, if it's academics or if it's about accommodation or something else. Oh yeah, there we are. Perfect. I'm just typing away this answer for okay, I haven't seen any more questions, I don't think. Oh, I have a bachelor's in computer science. The diploma was enough to be accepted with the English degree. Faiza, is your bachelor's degree from a UK university? There's not any, there's not any tests. Ruth, Matt, there's no test or task or anything to do, is there? No.
No,
So,
if they meet the entry requirements, there's no test.
Yeah, Faiza, generally, if you've got a bachelor's in computer science, and what we'll usually ask for is to see your transcript, so that's the way we can make sure that you've covered the right areas, and that you can evidence that you've studied programming and also have the mathematics background. But Faiza, if you want to drop me an email, send me your the details of your bachelor's, and then I can run that past our admissions team and check that all out for you, and let you know if that's okay. But I think that is probably it. I can't see any more questions. But yeah, Faiza, if you just want to get in touch with me, drop me an email and I'll have a look at that for you.
All right, great. So if there are any further questions, you can see the emails. I've put them down in the chat as well. This whole session would be live on YouTube for you to watch later if you missed out, or if you joined in between or towards the end of the session. I will share this link with everyone in this call, so you can go back and watch it, and I think you will be able to find most of the answers to your questions in this session. Otherwise, you always have our email. You can write to us. And with that, I will end this call. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Emma. And thank you, Matthew, for joining us and delivering this session today. It was very helpful.
Thank you, and thanks everyone
Emma.
for attending.
No problem.
Matt.
Great.